Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. I'm your host, Steve Merrill, joined by Rob Vino and Tony Mejia of WagerTalk.com. We're going to look at a big NFL game for the late afternoon Sunday action in the NFC West. Two of the best teams in the league, the best division by far, guys. Every team has a winning record right now. It's the latest in the season, the first time in NFL history that every team in the division has a winning record this far into the season. And these are two of them, Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers. Seahawks currently a 3-point favorite in this one. Total is right at 54. This is a 4:25 Eastern kickoff on Fox National TV Sunday afternoon. And Rob, I'm going to start with you. Seattle, of course, blew that game last Sunday night against Arizona, had the 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, ended up losing in overtime. Meanwhile, the 49ers coming off back-to-back straight-up underdog wins against the Rams and Patriots after losing outright as more than a touchdown favorite the two games before that against the Eagles and Dolphins. Rob Vino, which San Francisco, which Seattle team shows up this week on Sunday?
Well, it'll probably be a maximum effort from both sides, right? This is an NFC West divisional game, which in the NFL is the most important. And you have Seattle with their first loss inside the division, their first game against a divisional opponent and their first loss. So they sit at 0-1 in NFC West play. San Francisco 1-1. They also lost to Arizona first week of the season, came back and beat the Rams. But I think the story here, Steve, and we're filming this early in the week. It's difficult to make a selection here with the injuries that are going on for both of these sides. I mean, for San Francisco, an injury here or there spread across different units aren't that big of a deal. But when you get the cluster injuries like the San Francisco 49ers continue to have here, let's just go to the running back position where as soon as Raheem Mostert goes on the IR, Jeff Wilson goes out and scores 3 TDs against New England, and now he's out. So they're left with Jarrett McKinney, the only running back on this team right now. And then if we look at their starting safeties, neither played last week against New England. Of course, that's New England. They didn't miss them in that game, but it's questionable whether or not Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt come back this week. If you don't have your starting safeties against DK Metcalf, against Tyler Lockett with Russell Wilson's arm and their propensity to go deep, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to keep an eye on the injury report where San Francisco is concerned. They're also now going to be without Deebo Samuel. And I'm just going to point this out real quick because Deebo Samuel's just back in the lineup for a couple of weeks now. But the last 2 weeks with him in there and with their full complement of people, minus Mostert last week, 467 total yards against New England and 390 against the Rams. As good of offensive performances as Frisco has had all season long. Now, of course, again, they got to start from scratch without these guys. Other side of the coin, Seattle loses their top 2 running backs in that game Sunday night, lose Chris Carson, lose Carlos Hyde. Probably going to get a lot of Travis Homer, a lot of DJ Dallas for our Miami of Florida fans. You see a lot of that. But I think the biggest key to this game, and I'll bet Seattle -3 if Jamal Adams plays. Jamal Adams is just on the cusp of coming back to that safety position for Seattle. If he comes back, it won't negate George Kittle, but it'll help prevent George Kittle from going crazy because right now, as I mentioned, San Francisco is limited with their weaponry on offense. They've got Quentin Dunbar back. I just think that injury situation with Adams is that important. Here's a guy real quick before I turn it over to Tony that actually leads this team in sacks and pressures, and he hasn't played the last 3 games. Jamal Adams means that much. If he plays, I'll play Seattle -3.
Yeah, and this is, Tony, really a situation. And by the way, before I get to you, Tony, I want to remind everybody, WagerTalk.com, $1.99 special, as you see at the bottom of the screen, all of November, all sports, and you get the rest of October free. It's quite simple. You sign up now, you get the rest of October free and all of November for $1.99 all sports. And Tony, as Rob mentioned, Seattle, explosive offensive team. However, San Francisco looks like they hold the edge defensively in this game, getting points. Very difficult scheduling setup, though, Tony. They're off a back-to-back straight-up underdog wins, including an East Coast game at New England last week, now coming all the way back to the West Coast. How much do you factor in the situational angle here, Tony? What could be a letdown spot for the Niners, or is it a letdown spot being such a big divisional game?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the fact that this is a rivalry negates that. They'll be up to play. Like Rob said, this is going to hinge on injuries. And since beating the 49ers in that NFC Championship game in 13. The Seahawks are 11-2 against them. So San Francisco is going to be fired up. My mind went to Russell Wilson against Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, who's excellent. He'll be a head coach probably next season. But Wilson's had his number. He's 4-2 against them. 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions over the last 3 seasons. So you figure Russell's going to have success, especially if San Francisco can't get their safeties back. And was already stated, Jamal Adams and his availability is going to play a huge role in what Seattle is able to do to knock Jimmy Garoppolo off his rhythm. I think that's what you have to do to beat the 49ers, especially with no Deebo Samuel safety blanket. So I think the fact that Seattle's defensive line has gotten just 6 sacks and very little pressures through the first 7 games of the season, or 7 sacks through the first 6 games, I should say, is a huge deal. They clearly miss the defensive disruption up front that Jadeveon Clowney barely gave them last year. So they've been missing it. It's been an issue for the team for a couple of seasons now and really hindering them here. But that being said, I think that the Seahawks are probably the play. I went 14-2 in week 7. They were one of my losses. They melted down the stretch. I think they go on to beat Arizona if it wasn't for that bad penalty, which was a penalty. I was furious at it, but you can't use another person's body to try and block a kick. It was asinine to do that. They turned 3 points into 7, came down, made it easier for them, the Cardinals, to force overtime, and ultimately Seattle got a first loss that they probably didn't deserve. So even though they're compensating for the worst defense we've seen through 6 games in the NFL ever, the fact that Russell Wilson is playing at such a high level, I think bodes well for Seattle at home. There's not going to be a weather issue. Wind should be away. You never know if it's going to rain in Seattle, but 6 days out, the forecast is for light weather and 59 degrees. So, if push comes to shove, I think I like the Seahawks to cover against the 49ers.
Yeah, 10-point blown lead in the fourth quarter, otherwise 15-1. That's not too bad. And we'll see how it turns out this week. Once again, Seattle Seahawks, a 3-point favorite. By the way, minus 115 in most spots, guys. So more likely than not to hit 3.5 than the other way around, at least here as of midweek when we're doing this video. -3, minus 115, 54 the over-under. Once again, that's 49ers at Seahawks, 4:25 Eastern on Fox Sunday afternoon. And don't forget, right now, $199 for all of November, all sports at WagerTalk.com, and you get the rest of October for free. So don't delay. Every day sooner that you get on board that special is an extra day of October you're getting for free. $199 all sports, all of November plus October for free. Tony Mejia, Rob Vino, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Best of luck this weekend. We'll talk to you guys soon.